this alleged killer was attacked on his way to court. Eric Holder's attorney tells TMZ that he was attacked by two people while in a holding cell. Holder needed 3 staples after being cut, what's believed to be a razor. He also may have lost consciousness during the attack. Closing arguments in the murder trial.
The updates coming out of the pen are just wild. New footage just dropped, and it's looking like Nipsey's killer is facing some serious heat behind bars. The Opps ain't playing, and let's just say revenge is hitting different when it's prison rules. Nipsey Hussle's tragic death shook the world to its core, hitting the music industry, his community, and fans everywhere like a ton of bricks. But who could have guessed that the fallout for his killer, Eric Holder, would spiral into something this wild, this chaotic, and honestly, this extreme? It's like watching a real-life warning play out, where the consequences stretch way beyond the courtroom. So, let's break it down. Eric Holder, the man convicted of taking Nipsey's life, got hit with a jaw-dropping 60 years in prison.
Back here at home, hip-hop star Nipsey Hussle was gunned down in 2019, and today, his killer, Eric Holder Jr., was sentenced to 60 years to life. The judge said the sentence balanced the mental health of the defendant with the devastation caused to the victims and their families.
On paper, that's justice, right? But trust, the punishment started way before the sentence came down. Rumors have been flying about a shootout targeting Eric's family, with claims of devastating losses in the aftermath. And if that wasn't enough, there's talk that anyone daring to visit or associate with him could end up in serious danger. It's like Nipsey's legacy has cast an invisible net of vengeance over his memory, making sure the price of betrayal is steep. Eric's family? Yeah, they're reportedly doing everything they can to steer clear of the bloodshed. And then there's prison. Let's just say it's been far from a smooth ride for Eric. Stories of mistreatment and violence paint a grim picture of his time behind bars. Some thought Eric would have protection because of his gang days, but that couldn't be further away from truth.
When he go to prison, what the fuck he gonna do?
Well, he's gonna be in PC.
You can get touched in there too. So my only thing, and I hope this dude hear me, the only thing you can do is sharpen you some shit and keep your back to the wall and say, fuck it. You ain't coming home, so fuck it. Anything come near you, even if they don't open their mouth, stab their motherfucking ass, you don't know when it's coming.
One of those stories tells us about Eric Holder and the fact that he got jumped back in 2022 behind bars by 2 inmates. But they didn't just rough him up. They used a razor to slash him, and he even ended up unconscious. Eric had to get 3 staples in the back of his head, and his face was all bruised and banged up. Now, here's the wild part. Holder didn't even see it coming. Dude was sitting there in a holding cell with about 13 other inmates, head down, probably thinking about his next move. Then, boom, he gets attacked from behind. His lawyer, Aaron Jansen, said the guys who did it didn't say a word, they just went in. Why? No one really knows, but the streets have their own code, and Nip's name carries weight everywhere. Despite the beating, Eric showed up to court the next day, staples and all. And let's be real, it's hard to feel bad for him, knowing what he did. Holder even injured 2 other guys that same day when he took out Nipsey. What makes this even harder to swallow is how much Nipsey meant to his hood. Even the LAPD respected him for trying to bridge gaps between the community and the police. Nip wasn't just a rapper. He was way more. Even cops and former President Obama spoke on how much Nipsey meant to the world. His death brought gangs together to talk peace. Think about that. Nipsey's influence was so powerful, it made people rethink how they move in these streets.
We would like to read a letter from the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama, sent in regarding the life and celebration of Nipsey Hussle.
Eric might have taken Nipsey's life, but he couldn't touch Nipsey's legacy. That's gonna live on forever. One former inmate, a dude by the name of Bravo the Bag Chaser, even described a brutal incident during Eric's transfer, highlighting the kind of torment he's been enduring.
I remember the day I left to Delano in the bus when we all got chained up, caught the chain. It was March 29th. You'll never guess who was on that bus with me.
Who?
Eric Holder. I'm chained up. I'm with a few homies. I'm with a homie from 60s too.
Yeah.
And then so I'm like, but he's in a cage though. He's like, he was PC'd up. So he was in the cage, but he was in the last cage, and I'm sitting right here. So like his cage is right here. I'm like, what the fuck? And I tell the homie, I'm like, hey, I'm like, bro, I think that's old boy. And then I was just like, all right, man, bam, I go bang on his window, boom, boom, boom. He looks back, everybody on the bus like, what the fuck? I swear to God. And then he's like, you Eric Holder? He's like, yeah, this shit went crazy. On everything I love, he got pissed on and some more shit, spit on.
Well, some folks are like, he's getting what he deserves. Others can't help but wonder if this might be the beginning of the end for Eric, not because of parole or early release, but because revenge and justice seem to be blurring into something way more dangerous. Nipsey's influence was massive. He was loved, respected, and admired, not just in his hood, but across the whole rap game. It's likely Eric had no clue just how far Nipsey's impact would reach or how fiercely people would ride for his memory. After Eric shot Nipsey, the streets lit up with whispers about swift and brutal retaliation. Word is his entire family might have been caught up in the fallout, paying the price for his decisions. While nothing official has ever backed this up, unverified reports started swirling, claiming that at least 2 of Eric Holder's family members had been taken out or shot as payback for Nipsey's murder. But that wasn't the end of it. Things got even messier. Tariq Nasheed, another outspoken figure and an LA native, didn't hold back. He claimed that Eric had a reputation in the neighborhood as a snitch and might have been tied to other crimes too. Tariq even took it up a notch by posting a photo he claimed was from the scene of one of Holder's relatives' deaths. As this chaos unfolded, the LAPD reportedly ramped up their patrols, trying to manage the growing tension following Nipsey's tragic death. But let's be real. The rumor mill was already in overdrive and wasn't slowing down anytime soon. Some whispers started suggesting that Holder might not have acted alone, that he was just a pawn in a much bigger and darker game. And then, the name Big U began popping up in these conversations. People were pointing fingers at the tension between Big U and Nipsey, which flared up when Nipsey decided to part ways with Big U and go independent. According to someone from the Rolling 60s who's been sharing their take on the situation, this fallout might have been a key factor in the events that unfolded. It's a wild theory, but it's just one of the many layers in a story that keeps getting deeper. Right after Nipsey's death, rumors about Big U being involved started swirling all over LA. People pointed to his influence in the community and his past relationship with Nipsey as possible connections. But when it came down to it, all that chatter didn't hold much weight. Eric Holder was the one who pulled the trigger. And for those seeking revenge, that was the only fact that mattered. As if the drama wasn't already intense enough, Eric Holder ended up facing his own share of pain after the While he was on trial, he got attacked in jail, and according to his lawyer, Jansen, it was brutal. Holder took a razor to the back of his head, his face was swollen, and one of his eyes was messed up. Apparently, 2 inmates jumped him after he was transported back to jail following a court hearing. Things got so bad that the judge had to cancel court for the day, telling jurors to return later unless they heard otherwise. Sources even reported that Holder was supposed to be kept separate from other inmates during transport, but clearly, that plan went sideways.
He then kicks Nipsey before bolting toward the alley, which is where the first video began. Before the alleged shooter killed Nipsey, he reportedly got into a heated conversation with the Grammy Award-nominated rapper.
And all of this chaos ties back to that tragic day in May 2019, when Eric walked up to Nipsey outside his Marathon clothing store and opened fire. Nipsey was hit 11 times and 2 others were injured. The horrifying moment was supposedly caught on video, even showing Holder kicking Nipsey in the head as he lay bleeding on the ground, a moment that shook LA and the entire world to its core. Here's how it went down. Right from the jump, Eric Holder's lawyer didn't deny that his client shot Nipsey. But he fought hard against the idea that it was some cold-blooded, premeditated hit. He called it a heat of passion case, telling jurors that Nipsey had accused Eric of being a snitch, something that doesn't just roll off your back in the streets. These 2 weren't strangers. They had history. Both grew up in the same neighborhood and were tied to the Rollin' 60s Crips in South LA. This wasn't a random encounter. It was personal. According to Herman Douglas, aka Cowboy, one of Nipsey's closest friends, the 2 had a short conversation just 10 minutes before the shooting. Nipsey had brought up a rumor he'd heard about Eric supposedly working with the cops and giving up names. Cowboy said Eric didn't seem too fazed, like he was brushing it off. But clearly, something was boiling under the surface, because what happened next changed everything. Then there's Brianita Nicholson, Eric Holder's ex, who brought a whole new layer to the story. In her testimony, she shared that she had driven Eric to a restaurant in the same plaza where Nipsey's Marathon store was. While they were there, she overheard Holder confronting Nipsey in a sharp, heated tone, saying, "Did you say I snitched?" before storming off. After that, he got back in the car and told his girlfriend to drive around the block a couple of times. By the time they circled back, she said he was sitting there loading his gun like it was just another day. She went on to describe how casually he told her to park in an alley, took a couple bites of his chili cheese fries like nothing was out of the ordinary, and then just walked off toward the store. A few moments later, she heard gunshots. At first, she thought about taking off, but hesitated, wondering if Eric had gotten caught up in whatever went down. But then, he came running back, jumped in the car, and yelled for her to drive off fast. She saw him stash 2 guns in a bag, and even then it didn't fully click for her what had just happened. It wasn't until later that night, when she saw the news reports about Nipsey's death, that it hit her. Holder might have been the one responsible. It's scary to think about the fact that she only knew this guy for a month, and now she's wrapped up in one of the most devastating and talked about events in LA history. It's wild how fast things escalated, from a simple car ride to an irreversible tragedy. Nipsey's brother, Black Sam, sat down with Big Boy for a deeply emotional interview, where he opened up about everything from Nipsey's life to the gut-wrenching day his brother was taken from them. As the conversation went on, Sam got real personal, sharing his memories of that tragic day in 2019. He described how, despite all the chaos, there was still a flicker of hope as they rushed Nipsey to the hospital, holding on to the belief that maybe, just maybe, his brother would pull through. But when the news came that Nipsey had passed, everything came crashing down. It was a moment that hit hard for everyone listening, showing just how deep the loss cut. Not just for Sam, but for everyone who loved Nipsey. Big Boy, never one to shy away from tough questions, asked Sam if he believed the narrative that Nipsey's death was just a random spur-of-the-moment act. That's when Sam started peeling back the layers, revealing details that painted a much different picture. He explained that whenever Nipsey visited the Marathon store, there was always a routine, a protocol in place to keep him safe. Someone would usually be stationed at the door, armed, keeping watch over the scene. But on that particular day, something was off. No one was guarding the door, and Nipsey, dressed casually in shorts, seemed relaxed, vulnerable in a way he never should have been. Sam went on to recall how Eric first approached Nipsey shirtless, like he was scouting the area. Sam said Eric must have noticed the lack of security, seen that Nipsey wasn't on high alert, and then made his move. But here's where it gets even more chilling. Eric walked away, just like Brianita had confirmed in her testimony, only to come back minutes later wearing a red shirt. In their neighborhood, Sam explained, nobody wears red shirts. It's practically a rule. You can't even buy one at the local liquor store. To Sam, this wasn't a coincidence. He believed Eric intentionally put on the red shirt to throw people off and make his actions seem disconnected from the gang-related tensions in the area, before sneaking through the alley and carrying out the attack. For Sam, this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment act. It was calculated, planned, and devastatingly executed. Fast forwards to the trial, and Holder was eventually sentenced to 60 years to life in prison. The verdict came down on July 6, 2022, when he was found guilty of first-degree murder for Nipsey's killing.
I am very mindful of what was presented as to Mr. Holder's mental health history. I'm also mindful of the devastation caused to the victims and their families. So I think this sentence balances both.
The sentence came down hard, as it should, given the gravity of his actions. But Eric wasn't just convicted of Nipsey's murder. He was also found guilty of 2 counts of attempted voluntary manslaughter and possession of a firearm. Despite pleading not guilty to all charges, the jury didn't buy his claims of innocence when it came to Nipsey, though they did find him not guilty of attempted murder in relation to the 2 men who were injured during the shooting. After the verdict, Eric's attorney, Aaron Jansen, expressed disappointment, saying they plan to appeal the sentence. It was always going to be tough. Considering the high-profile nature of the case, Jansen told ABC News, acknowledging the immense attention the trial had received. Still, he found a small silver lining, saying they were relieved the jury acquitted Eric of the 2 attempted murder charges, believing those accusations were overblown. For Sam and Nipsey's loved ones, though, the focus wasn't on legal stuff. It was about the irreplaceable loss of a man who was more than just a rapper. Nipsey was a community leader, a brother, and a beacon of hope in a neighborhood that needed him. Sam's reflections during that Big Boy interview served as a painful reminder of how much was lost that day. Not just for his family, but for the culture Nipsey worked so hard to uplift. Even though Holder pleaded not guilty to the first-degree murder charge, he never denied pulling the trigger on Nipsey. His lawyer made the case during the trial that while Eric did shoot Nipsey, it wasn't premeditated. On the other hand, Nipsey Hussle was the polar opposite, a beacon of hope for his community. He wasn't just a rapper. He was a leader who gave back to the same neighborhood he came from. He provided jobs, supported local businesses, and was even in talks with the LAPD about ways to reduce gang violence just days before his tragic death. Nipsey's impact wasn't limited to music or his immediate surroundings. He was a force for change. Born Armis Joseph Asom, Nipsey carved his own lane in the music world, starting with the independent release of Slauson Boy Volume 1, which gained him local buzz and led to deals with Cinematic Music Group and Epic Records. Over the years, he became known for standout mixtapes like the Bullets Ain't Got No Name series, The Marathon, and Crenshaw, the latter of which Jay-Z bought 100 copies of at $100 each. A power move that made headlines and solidified Nipsey as something special. Then came his debut album, Victory Lap, in 2018, which was a massive success, earning a Grammy nomination for Best Rap Album. Even after his passing, Nipsey's influence remained strong with posthumous Grammy wins for Racks in the Middle and Higher. But Nipsey's story wasn't just about music. He grew up in Crenshaw of South LA and got involved with the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips as a teenager. At just 14, he left home and started hustling, but by 19, his perspective shifted. A life-changing trip to Eritrea with his father and brother in 2004 inspired him to embrace an entrepreneurial mindset and dedicate himself to uplifting his community. His stage name, Nipsey Hussle, was a nod to his grind and work ethic, a playful take on comedian Nipsey Hussle, given to him by a childhood friend who saw his relentless drive. Nipsey wasn't just an artist. He was a symbol of resilience, ambition, and hope. His death left a void still felt today, but his legacy as a leader and visionary for Crenshaw continues to inspire, even in the face of the tragedy and loss surrounding his life and death. Outside of music, Nipsey Hussle left an unforgettable legacy as a community leader and activist. He co-founded the Marathon clothing store and created Vector 90, a co-working space designed to empower young people in Crenshaw with opportunities in science, technology, and entrepreneurship. Nipsey was dedicated to uplifting his neighborhood, funding school improvements, mentoring students, and speaking out about his own experiences with gang culture to inspire change. He worked on projects like Destination Crenshaw to celebrate Black culture and had even planned a meeting with the LAPD to discuss solutions for reducing gang violence just days before his death. After his tragic passing, the outpouring of grief from fans, celebrities, and even former President Obama highlighted just how much Nipsey meant to his community and beyond. His funeral procession through South Central LA drew massive crowds, showing the deep respect and love people had for him. Nipsey's impact didn't stop there. His life inspired gang leaders to take steps toward peace, with many calling ceasefires and holding summits to curb violence. In every sense, Nipsey Hussle was more than just a rapper. He was a movement, a visionary, and a symbol of hope for generations to come. Now, we want to hear what you think of Nipsey, of his legacy, and the fact that he was taken away from us by Eric Holder, who has an entire life of struggle and pain in front of him. And before you leave, make sure to check this video out as well.